Hello, welcome back to Doing Bart Things, and today we're going to talk about the RTX 4060. I started to make a video about this, the 4060. We're also going to talk about some AMD developments and a quick tip for airflow. But starting off with the RTX 4060, interestingly, over the past few days, and with the launch of the 4060 next week, the spin has started, I believe. NVIDIA is basically allowing only certain outlets, like I think they had a JC 2 cents video, which after I watched, I was in my head going, no way in hell am I trusting this. They're controlling it very close to the vest, and we both know why. Or we all know why, is because this card is a dog. Like, it's going to get smashed by last gen and current gen stuff that is around the same price or cheaper. So AMD released the 7600 RX 7600 non-XT, and it is out there right now, and it can be had for as low as $249. I haven't seen this price. It says Amazon, but when I click on this, I get $269, just like $10 off of the MSRP. I'm assuming there's some sort of like coupon code, but you can get some extra savings. You can get yourself Resident Evil 4. Hey, you'll take that, right? So, get to this in a second. So basically, this card, they're comparing it or trying to compare it against a 3060. And against a 3060, it does okay, but I would, again, huge grain of salt with this, huge pessimism. And the reason is, if we look down here, so they're using 3D Mark, okay? So number one, we're using a synthetic benchmark, right? And in synthetic benchmarks, I would never ever make a purchasing decision based off synthetic benchmarks. Go look at the game you want to play. Number one, go look at the games you're going to play and look at you can look at the overall performance of a myriad of games. Hardware Unboxed, I think, does a really giant suite. Gamers Nexus does a pretty big suite. Linus Tech Tips, like, I'm sure, there's a number of outlets out there, and there's even channels now on YouTube that literally just do, they just test stuff. Here's this video card running with this processor, whatever. I would do a lot of analyzing of that, just to make sure the thing ran in the games that you want to play the way that you want to run. I don't think that you should get too caught up in if one card is 5% faster than the other. I think anything that's around 5%, and 5% can look like a giant difference if a game's running at 400 frames per second, for example, and the other video cards only run that game at 370 frames per second. Like, wow, that's huge. Well, it's not that big because they're already, blowing the game away, right? But look at the games you want to play. Kind of go for, in the price range that you can afford, what seems to perform better in the games that you want to play. That's the way that I personally try to purchase gaming hardware, which is the video card. CPU and motherboard and stuff notwithstanding, I look at the games that I want to play when I'm buying a video card, and that's kind of where I make my decision. I just think synthetic benchmarks are kind of they're fun, but unless running benchmarks is what you're literally going to do, if that's what you're going to do, then cool, buy one that runs a benchmark the best. But other than that, it's nothing more than kind of a tool to do a comparison very abstractly, and I would never, again, base a purchasing decision for something I was actually going to game on a synthetic benchmark like 3D Mark. But it does give us an idea of how it compares. I found it very interesting that the 3060 8 gig is just not doing well. 3060 12 gig is kind of hanging in there. And look at the 4060, it's just beating everything, right? In its price bracket that's replacing. Meanwhile, the 7600, which is cheaper, doesn't do as well with ray tracing. Okay, and that's a key, is ray tracing. When we come down here without ray tracing, it's keeping things pretty real in Time Spy. Notice they only did 1440 for these two. Time Spy and Time Spy Extreme, they obviously changed the resolution here because Extreme, I think, is 4K. And as the resolution gets higher, they keep fair parity mostly. But let's look at Firestrike. What? Yeah, going to Firestrike. Suddenly, the 7600 is just way better. The 7600 in Firestrike is nearly keeping pace with the 4060 Ti. That's interesting. Very interesting. So, as a matter of fact, it surpasses it at 4K in Firestrike. So, that's why I say you got to go look at the games you play. You know, it's because if your game is more like this and not like this, then you might be able to save yourself a few bucks, right? Is what I'm getting at here. People are going to buy what they're going to buy. These video cards at the end of the day are only 20 to 50 bucks apart. 50 bucks being maybe if you find 7600 at 249, then you could save yourself 50 bucks. Now, that's not an insignificant amount of money. For some people, that could go towards their CPU, their motherboard, a case. But yeah, it's still not very far apart in price. So I would definitely look at what you're playing here. I think, again, this 4060, when people are allowed to really benchmark this thing, not the very specific, I am sure, what's the right word? Restricted, very oversaw NDA style review, mini review, quote unquote, that like Jay-Z 2 Cent did. When the real reviews come out, we're going to see this video card, and it is just going to get murdered. Nobody's going to like this video card. And I think it's going to be because the only thing it's going to bring to the table is very low power consumption. This is a 110 watt card, I believe, 115 watt card, something like that. It only comes with one 8-pin connector. So if you're looking for a compact card that is very low noise, low power, doesn't take up a lot of room, and that's all you're concerned with, like that's kind of your main deal, is something that can kind of game. You can run a 1080p screen off of it and get decent performance with as low a power as you possibly can get away with, and still have something that's reasonable. Then maybe this card is what you look at, maybe. But again, I'm still going to say that that's kind of title dependent, because you can see here that even between 3D Mark versions, this being, I forget which version 3D Mark Firestrike is in, but anyway, the newer one, the 4060 seems to do a little better, but in the older one, the 7600 does better. Maybe you're playing older titles, and that would be something that would interest you. So I just don't think, at the end of the day, this card is going to end up coming out looking very well. And there was another article on here showing with these benchmarks, when they overclocked it and they tried to tweak it, it didn't even make a difference. It was 1% or something, which is, to me, that's total variance. So there's there's no reason to even attempt to buy one of these things and attempt to, I'm going to tweak it and get a little bit more performance. Like, I would not even, do not look at these cards this way. NVIDIA is spreading out their product line. They're making sure that this 4060 is never going to be able to encroach on their 4060 Ti. They're going to make sure that their 4060 Ti can never encroach on 4070s. It's 4070s never going to be able to encroach 4070 Ti's. Like, they have spread out their lineup to where it's all about the price point. And if you want to pay this much, then this is the product you get. And there's no, well, I'm going to get this product, and maybe you try to tweak it a bit to get some more out of it. Like, NVIDIA's definitely trying to kill that for sure. They're like, well, you'll get more out of it for that price, but it's never going to, you may get close to the default numbers of the next lineup, but you're not going to get anywhere near what that lineup is. It's not the way it used to be at all. But I do think that this is still going to be pretty much a turd sandwich of a card. I think it's laughable that it's not getting beat by a little bit. It's getting pretty smashed in Firestrike. This 1440p Speedway run, this may not be something that the 7600 likes, but like if you come right back here with Port Royale, it does much better. So I don't know. Between runs, hard to say, but I can tell you that it's a few percentage slower. This is within realm of error. This is not. That's not. I would say 5% is your within error, and then it's consistently getting waylaid in Firestrike. So this card is what we thought it is. Everybody yawn and go about their day. Gamers Nexus is probably going to destroy this card. So we'll see what happens. Moving on. I think we talked about the price drop for the 7600, or you can get them for fairly cheap now. Let's talk about this. AMD has a smaller package for the Navi 31. So Navi 31 is the 7900 XT, the 7900 XTX. It's the big chip. But they found a way to put that big chip onto a smaller package. So the package that they put it on will enable it to be made cheaper. Now they will have to disable some of the cores, but that core disabling allows them to basically take the stock of NV31s that maybe don't make the grade as full N31s and sell them at a lower price and get them off the shelves. This is exciting because I previously thought N32 was going to be the 7800 XT, which was going to be kind of not great. They've done calculations. N32 at its best doesn't make the grade. It basically would be a rebranding of a 6800 XT level of performance, maybe a 6900 XT at best. And that was going to be all she wrote. And at the price they probably would release that product at, it was going to be a no-go. Price means everything. Like, you can release a 6800 XT performance card and have great success with it and sell a bunch of them, but you're going to need to price it a tier down, is what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to put it head-to-head with the 4060 Ti, for example. You do that, you probably would do pretty well. I don't think the 4060 Ti does very well at all against the 6800 XT is my guess. Maybe. I haven't looked that up specifically, but I'm just trying to remember that off the top of my head. However, N31 is a completely different animal. You can add more cores than you would have with a full-fledged N32. So N31, even cut down, you're still going to get more density than you would with the N32. Density meaning the amount of transistors and thus complexity in cores and everything else. And as a result, what it all boils down to is it's going to perform better. You could see an RX 7900 plain, so no XT on the end, just 7900. You could see an RX 7800 XT come from this. One of those two, maybe both. And I think that's exciting because you have the 7900 XTX, the 7900 XT, which is dropping in price and starting to become a better deal. And then you have the you could have either the 7900 or the 7800 XT. I kind of hope they label it as 7800 XT. I've said for a while now that they need to drop all these cards and try to slot in a new revised 79, like it would be like a 7950 XTX or something like that would be what I would want to see get slotted in up top in order to basically eliminate anyone buying a 4080, you know, because NVIDIA already is having trouble selling the 4080, and I think if AMD did that, they would continue to really see some strong sales in that $600 to $1,000 price range. Can't believe I'm saying $1,000, but I think they would continue to see very strong sales of these Navi parts if they did that. I think they still will see some strong sales of these Navi parts if they continue to drop the price. The deal is, you know, I think that they could command that $1,000 price tag for longer if they were to do that. And I think they've got the silicon to do it, unless Navi 40 or the next iteration is going to come sooner rather than later. If that's the case, then maybe not. Maybe you just keep dropping prices and you hold on to your guns. I don't know. NVIDIA, like, they are trying not to lower prices, but they're going to end up having to offload these cards at some point. Everybody knows it, so everybody's just being patient, you know. And so it'll be interesting to see what's going on. But this is exciting news. Like I said, it could mean that we get a 7800 XT or 7900 plane for a pretty good price. We're talking around $500, maybe $600. I'd prefer $500, but that's wishful thinking. I think $600 is probably where this comes in at. If they can make a, you know, 7900 at $600 and the 7800 XTX at $599 maybe, hey, that'd be pretty good. I do think that would be saturating the market with different product lines, though. I don't know if they need to do that. You know, I mean, cut the difference. Make one for $550 and make it the best version of that cut down chip you can make it. Like, I'm tired of having every $100 we got to have a different product. Is pretty annoying. So anyway, that's kind of it for that. I think this is good news. This will put pressure on NVIDIA, hopefully. Now, quick tip, and I'll leave you guys. For buying a computer case, if you want a computer case that uses large fans, something to look out for is when you, for example, if you were going to buy this case, you see how it's got these bars here that kind of would be where you would mount your 140s or 120s if you wanted to mount smaller fans. Well, these bars get in the way because this is a reused chassis, right? Because all the tooling for these chassis is reused. The interior gets reused over and over again with front fascias and different little tweaks here and there. So, what this is really, it should only have two 140s or three 120s from the cutouts, but they've put these little bolt ups and cut holes in the sides, stamped holes, to allow some airflow from the outside of these 200mm fans to actually get through, right? But it's still not as good as it could be because you still got these bars in the way. So you have these bars in the way and you have these this front mesh. So it's really going to deter the flow. It's going to create turbulence. It's going to cause the fans to get a little choked off from getting as much air into the case as they could otherwise. Just something to keep in mind. Now, there are cases out there, more newer, modern ones, that get around this. The way that they get around this, if you look at, for example, the Lee & Lee 216, which is a great case, and if someone's looking for just the graded all things master of none case that is more or less just a mid-tower size, it's not overly large, It comes with great cooling characteristics. It has tons of room for more fans. It's plenty big enough for your biggest GPUs. And the best part is it's just over $100. Hard to beat. The Lean Lee 216 has these rails that come off. You bolt them onto the fan, and then you bolt them to the chassis. As long as it's a standard size fan, then it will have the appropriate holes to mount your fans onto. It's a great idea, and it gets around that. In other cases, I think have adopted similar approaches. So I would highly suggest just keeping that in mind, because this only sort of gets in the way of the very, very tip of these fans, and everything else is blown into the case the way that you want. You're still going to have the restriction from the mesh on the outside, but it's not anything like the mesh and then these giant bars in front where you would mount other fans, where if that was removed, you'd have less impedance going in the case. Just something to keep in mind. I was looking at computer cases, as one does, and realized, oh wait, that would be a nice little tip to drop for anybody that's looking for a case. Guys, that's it for today. I really appreciate you guys staying in the video this long, and if you would, leave a like and subscribe. Good on you. Hopefully we'll see you in the next video. I'm planning on maybe doing a game review. I've had Diablo 4 and I've put some real time into it the past few weeks, and I might just do a review now that I've gotten a character level 50. So anyway, maybe. Thank you guys. Have a great week.